check out what I got. So this is a Fiberglass Rocket Bunny style spoiler. I don't think it's genuine Rocket Bunny. I wouldn't know how to tell because I haven't bought from them before, but I'm guessing it's not genuine. But it's a Fiberglass Rocket Bunny style spoiler that I'm going to put on the Z. So if you're watching this, it's probably because you want to either see it or know how to do it. So we're going to try and do it by moulding it to the boot. So I don't want any bolts to be seen, I don't want any gaps to be seen. I want it to look like it came from the factory like this. And while we're at it, we're also going to cover up this little wiper hole because it's just got a little grommet put in it. So we're going to take that plug out, we're going to weld it, and then we're going to put on this wing. So to start with, we're going to take off the spoiler, we're going to take off the badges, and then we're going to take off all the trim on the inside of the boot, and then we're going to take the whole boot off so that I don't have to prep the rest of the car for overspray and whatnot. So after that, the boot's going on a stand and we're going to take out the glass. Once the glass is out, that's when I'm going to start sanding and doing all that other stuff. So spoiler, badges, trim, boot, glass, and then start sanding, apply some fiberglass. You guys can see it as we go. So if you're planning to do this, you can see what I did and what you need and which order you need to go through. I've done a little bit of research trying to find out the best way to do it because people tend to say that joining fiberglass to metal doesn't work, it just ends up cracking over time. So I'm going to try my best to use the proper method and the proper order of laying down the layers so that it'll last as long as possible, if not forever. So we'll see. We're going to get started. Alrighty guys, so trim removal tools. We're going to pop off the trim so I can take off the spoiler. So I'm just going to work my way along, prying all the little push pins off. Well, Alright, so this is my trim piece off. It's pretty easy. Alright, so it looks like there's a bolt on either end of the spoiler that's holding it down. Alright guys, so we're worried about scratching the paint because it's coming off anyway, but I'm going to use a heat gun to sort of melt the adhesive, and then we'll use the fishing line to pull it off. So alright guys, I can't find our plastic wedges, so because I'm resanding this and filling and all that stuff, I'm going to use a metal one. If you were just taking off the spoiler just to get rid of it, don't go using a metal one because you'll ruin your paint, so keep that in mind. Sweating. Alright, so we got it off. It's got two little pin things and then two bolts that you do need to undo from the inside. Other than that, it's all tape and I'm sweating. That was kind of hard. So now I'm going to clean all this up. Going to start sanding and whatnot after I get it off the car. Alright guys, so this is the factory spoiler for a Track 350z. The Tourings didn't get them. This is the spoiler I'm putting on. You can see that's easily like an extra 50% downforce, which is equivalent to like 100 horsepower gains. So This is pretty good for what money can buy you. Best horsepower for money, I reckon, easily. So we're about to start sanding my precious paint that I've been looking after for years, and now I'm going to scratch it all off. And we're going to take it back to bare metal when we lay the fiberglass. So we're going to scratch all my paint off now. Alrighty guys, so we are all the way back to bare metal, right where the spoiler is actually attaching to, and then we've roughed up just a little bit further forward. We will have to repaint the whole thing, so we're probably going to take off all the paint past the clear coat, and then I think we can leave the rest at either paint, like base coat or primer, and just spray our base coat over the top of that, and then our 2-pack clear coat. But I'm not too sure. I'll ask Dad, he's the expert, but this is probably where we're going to leave it for tonight. So we'll get back to this in the morning and see if we can take the glass out again. We're going to weld up this little hole, and we're also going to fiberglass the boot. Alrighty guys, so we're back. It's the next day now. We gave the boot a quick thinners over, cleaned up all of the dust and whatnot, and we sat it in the sun so it can start warming up. I'm going to go through and weld these holes up. I've used some washers just to sort of fill the gap, and then I'm just going to weld the washers in and then weld the middle of the hole, sand it over, and hopefully they'll blend in nicely. And then for the smaller holes on the edge, I'll just weld those up without a washer. Alrighty guys, so I haven't figured out how to take out the glass, so my dad suggested that if we just take out the seal here along the edge of the glass, tape up the glass and then spray it, that way the clear coat and paint can get under that seal there and get a nice strong bond to the material. There's not going to be any edges where it can peel up, it'll all be under that seal. So we'll just peel up this seal and that should be good enough, and then we'll start fiberglassing. So now we're going to drill all the holes out so we can put it back on, mark the holes on the boot, dry fit it, and then after that we can lay down some fiberglass on the bottom side of this and the boot and sort of like squish them together with the bolts, and after that we'll do our bog work on top. So this is the first step to putting it actually on the boot, which is pretty exciting. Alright, so this is where we're up to. I've been sanding like crazy, and we're finally down to fiberglass, and then I went over it with the Orbi just to smooth out some of the rough spots that the grinder left behind. So that's all the way around. We've got a nice little bonding area of fiberglass to fiberglass. I might need to go a bit higher on this patch here, but this is the underside. It's all stripped because that's where most of the fiberglass is going to be connecting. So I'll probably go through here and take off a bit more, but I'm done for tonight. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. So we're all masked up, everything's ready to go. That's all drilled and sanded back so that the fiberglass will adhere to it, and we've cleaned up the drill holes where the rivets are going to go now. We're not using screws just because some of them are different depth behind them, and the rivets are going to work a bit better than what the nutserts and screws were going to.
Step on the land, I've got your hand, and now we're way down, fade out low. Was it your plan? Can't understand. I love the air you bring, everything. Under the sun, our fire is burning. You tell me to hold on tight. I wish that we could stay here forever. I wanna remember. Oh, the sight of you brings the fight in me, makes me wanna move. Fingers down your spine, looking in my eyes, feel your hands on mine. Tonight we're freer than ever. I wanna remember. Oh, we run every endeavor. I wanna remember.
Lean? Yep.
I've got your hand, and now we're way down, fade out, no. Was it your plan? Can't understand. I love the air you bring, everything. I'm in the sun, a fire is burning. You tell me to hold on tight. I wish that we could stay here forever. I wanna remember. Oh, the sight of you brings the fight in me, makes me wanna move. Fingers down your spine, looking in my eyes, feel your hands on mine. Tonight we're freer than ever. I wanna remember. Oh, we run every endeavor. I wanna remember.
Alright guys, so this is where we're at the moment. We did a layer of chop mesh down on the hatch with resin, and did like a nice wet, layer over the top of the hatch. Then we did the same thing on the spoiler on the underside. So they both had resin, chop mesh, and then wet it down with more resin and sort of sealed it tight and pushed it in on both surfaces. And then we put the spoiler down, put the rivets in there, and pulled it together so it sort of squeezed onto both of the surfaces, and then we wet it all down along the edges. Then we went back and put more chop mesh down along the front, just because we're going to have to start building that area up. So there's 2 layers on the front where the spoiler is, and then there's just the 1 or the 2 layers between both surfaces along here, and then there's the chop mesh on the front that we've just done there. That's probably about as much as we can do today, so we got to leave it and let it dry. Alright guys, so we're back doing the hatch. So while I was gone, I did a couple more layers of chop mesh all along here. I think I probably did 3 more layers through this section here. I didn't do too much out here, but right here where it sort of, there was a bit of a gap between the boot and the spoiler. Did a couple layers along there to sort of bulk that up and try and reduce that gap. And you can see it's pretty close now. There's not much, you know, you guys probably can't even see it on camera. Right here is the biggest gap, and I'm gonna do 1 more layer of chop mesh through there. And then I'm using the fiberglass weave, the little blanket. I'm gonna do some layers down here and mold it all together, marry it all up with that mesh stuff. And then I can start using filler. I think I can start using filler along these edges too, and along the back, but I'll just double check that, make sure I'm doing it in the right order. Yeah, so this will hopefully be the last fiberglass. I also did another layer on these edge pieces there because they were quite thin. It's just this little section here I could push in on it and it would it'd bend, which I didn't want because once it's got paint on it, if it moves it'll crack the paint. And it was the same thing along here. I can sort of press on it and it bends just a little bit. So we're going to add some more fiberglass along here to keep it, you know, nice and firm. Yeah, if you're doing this, make sure you get some rough sandpaper because this stuff is strong. Another layer of fiberglass going down, just mixing up the resin. Alright guys, so we've just laid down that fiberglass cloth and it's looking pretty good. You know, it's really starting to take shape now. You can barely see anything on camera. I'll try and pick up the little lip there, which I'm not sure if you guys can see that. There's a tiny lip here, but everywhere else is pretty good. The fabric's sticking up a little bit here, but that'll be sanded down. That's about it on the fiberglassing, I think. I think that's the last of the fiberglass on this spoiler, which is awesome because it's kind of itchy. Now we're going to move on to down here along this edge. We're going to put some bog in along here and then in these little rivet holes, and let that dry overnight, and then it's onto even more sanding. So one thing that I always underestimate on these jobs is the amount of sanding that goes into it, and it's no different here. I think I definitely underestimated it by pretty far how much sanding this job is going to take, so that's always fun. So I reckon we want, ooh, kind of hard. Oh, you can see the little hairs in it. So we weren't sure. We were reading the back of this, and I asked for fibre reinforced bog. And when we were reading it, it said that this product replaces long and short strand bog. So we were thinking that there's this new product that doesn't have hairs in it anymore that does the same thing. which I was a little bit concerned about because everyone told me to get hairy bog. And then I thought that it wasn't hairy bog, but this is hairy bog. Enough hardening. I've mixed it wrong before and it just never dried because I mixed a massive amount of bog and put in a minuscule amount of hardener, because everyone always says don't put in too much hardener, it'll go off before you can use it. So this is how the last round of fiberglass dried. It's looking pretty good. It's all really smooth, like you can barely even see where the gap is. I mean, you can feel it, but you know, it's getting really level there. So I'm going to sand that all back. The bog's all dried and that looks good. So basically I'm going to cut these edges off, sand everything back and smooth it out, and then we'll see if I need another strip of the cloth or if I can start bogging. So I've just done a bit more sanding. You can see these edges are really starting to come together now, looking really good. And along the back too, along the other side. So I've still got a bit more to do. You can see there's some low spots and some high spots. I still haven't figured out if I need to do one more layer of bog, so we'll just keep on sanding for a bit longer. Woo! She's looking good. Look at that. Beautiful, nice and smooth. We are ready for bog now. Got the word from Dad. He said that this is pretty spot on. So we're going to go ahead and use some of that fiberglass bog. Alright, so we got the bog down last night. This is the fibre bog, and now I'm going to go over and sand it down. After I've sanded this bog down, it's the fibre bog. It's got little hairs and strands in it, which is good for bonding to fiberglass. Now that this is bonded to the fiberglass, I can go and use the normal body bog, which I think it's just a little bit thinner, and it sands down nicer because it doesn't have all the hairs in it. So now that we've bonded to fiberglass with the fibre bog, I can bond to the fibre bog with normal bog. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to sand all this stuff back, make sure that there's no hairy bits on the end, and then go over it with normal bog. Alright guys, so I was out all day today and it looks like Dad gave it a sand while I was gone. It's looking pretty good. There's only a couple low spots along this little gap here. So I think I'm going to use the regular bog instead of the fibre bog, and we're just going to do big the wide edge and fill in all those gaps that are running the width of the spoiler. Alright, so I've had a bit of a busy weekend and I've been trying to film between it, but I've done a little bit of things off camera just to sort of keep it moving. So we're up to, I think, the third coat of normal body fill bog. We did one coat of fibre bog, I think, maybe two coats, and now, we're up to probably the fourth coat of body fill bog, just doing the little bits now. It's sort of taking shape. So now we're up to sanding again. But yeah, this is where we're up to. We're only going to be filling little spots now. It's really getting close to being done. So I'm going to keep sanding. Alright, so we've got the primer down. I'm going to go over the top with 400 and just try and level out some of the low spots that we've got over here, just real carefully, and scrub up the top of the primer so that the paint will adhere better. And then there's a bit of taping and stuff to do underneath. So, alright guys, so now we're using 400 grit sandpaper to take back all the imperfections and swirl marks from the Orbi sander. And then after that we can paint it. So now we're trying to find imperfections so that we can basically sand them out or fill them up. A good way to find imperfections is invite a couple of your mates around and tell them that you're really proud of it, and they'll just go straight to work trying to find everything wrong with it. So that's just a little shortcut around that. Alright guys, so while I was gone, Dad put down the clear coat. I had to duck into uni and we're on a bit of a time crunch because I want the car on the track this weekend, and it's Thursday at the moment, so I had to get the clear coat down today so it's got time to dry and then be put back on. So I wasn't here for it, unfortunately, but it's down. There's a couple imperfections in the paint, but I think that comes down to the size of the workshop. It's kind of hard to keep a workshop this size dust free, along with, you know, all the people coming and going. So I think this is one of the times that having a smaller shed would be better. If you were just doing this in like a little single bay shed, you'd easily be able to blow it out, shut it up, you know, keep the bugs out, keep the dust out, all that sort of stuff. Here we just can't do that. So a little bit unfortunate, but considering, you know, you're not even going to see these things from a little bit further away, it's not that bad. And you know, we did it all here ourselves. So obviously if you're paying someone to paint it, you're not going to have these issues. But I'm also going to try and clean up some of them. Others I'm not going to be able to, but the paint on the rest of the car isn't perfect condition either, so this isn't really that big of a worry. Alrighty guys, so I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who made it this far into the video. I know it's been a long one. I also just wanted to say that if you aren't already, go check out the Instagram. It's where I do my updates for like when new videos are coming out and what I'm up to. So go give that a follow if you want to keep up to date. The other thing I wanted to say is that 95% of my viewers are coming from unsubscribed viewers. So if you've watched one of my other videos before and you're a return viewer, just consider dropping a sub. I bet you guys are dying to see what the spoiler looks like on the car, so I won't hold you up any further. So here it is. It's looking pretty clean. I think we did an awesome job on it. I'm really proud of it. Alright legends, thanks for watching. That's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.